I'm going to show you exactly how I scrape LinkedIn. This is for profiles and also emails. Now there's a few steps to this process and there's a few different ways in which you can approach it, but I'm going to show you absolutely everything. We're first starting within Sales Navigator, in which I've already set this up. So quite simply, I'm searching for a digital marketing agency. We've got the current job set to founder, owner, chief executive officer, so it's CEO, posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days. And then we set the geography to be United States, in which this has given me 1,500 plus results. Pretty decent. So this will go through and list quite a few different digital marketing agencies. Now this does list everyone, but we now need to manually go through them if we wanted to go through and get their profile URLs. And of course, there's no way to go through and see their emails on here. So we need to use a different tool, in which I use Expandi. There will be a link to this in the description down below, but you can get this on a monthly subscription. The thing that I like about this though is that I can now automate my LinkedIn, and also I can still go through and scrape emails. So it's a 2-in-1, but there's also no limit. There's a lot of tools and software out there that will put a limit on how many people you can scrape within a given time period. You can keep on going through and doing this. There are some limitations in terms of where you're scraping from, because LinkedIn is heavily restricted, that LinkedIn actually doesn't like automations. So when we're going through and using this, Expandi's trying to be as safe as possible. What we can now go through and do is add a list, and you'll see that we got quite a few different options here. LinkedIn search, we got Sales Navigator, recruiter URL. With some of this stuff, you need to have access. So most of you will probably have the LinkedIn search if you have a LinkedIn account, because it's free. Sales Navigator, you need to pay for. Recruiter, I think you also need to pay for. And then you could go through and check other things as well, such as people you may know, post engagement. So if there's a post that you want to be able to scrape from, you can also go through and set that. In this case, we've gone through and we've set up Sales Navigator. So we can actually go through and copy this, and then we could go back over, hit the Sales Navigator URL, paste this in. This does set the limit at 2,500. So that's what I mean by the limitation, in that you start to scrape too much, and then suddenly it becomes like a red flag. So mine is 1,500. That's what I broke my list down. So we should be perfectly fine to go through and do that. LinkedIn search, which is the URL from LinkedIn directly, will give us a limit of a maximum of 1,000, I believe it is. We'll check in a sec. But we can now just go through and click next. I'm going to call this digital marketing agency, Sales Navigator. In fact, we'll just go Sales Navigator because it's already there. We can set this to auto refresh. So this will auto refresh every week or every 7 days. We can actually set the time. If I did have a campaign, so if I was going to set something up where I automatically engage with these people that are part of this list, I could go through and set that campaign in Expandi and then auto assign it here. I haven't actually got anything set up for this. This is more just for being able to go through and scrape, but you can auto assign it so that once it refreshes, it auto goes into there. And also once you scrape all of these for the first time, it will auto go into that campaign. But we can now go through and hit confirm, and it's going to take a minute or two. It's going to be in progress, and then it's actually just going to run through and scrape absolutely everyone that's part of that list. Okay, I let Expandi do its thing. It took maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, not too sure. But I just came back and we now have our lead list for the digital marketing agency. So we can just go through, close this down. I'm just going to go through, click on this one, then click on this one. And there we go. We have everyone here. However, not everyone's going to have an email address. This is fine for if we wanted to go through and put this into a campaign, and that campaign is then there to just go through, send connection requests for those who we haven't been connected with. And we can actually start to go through and build a relationship there on LinkedIn. But if we want to go through and actually get their email, we need to go over to email availability, connections with email, in which we normally lose like 300, 400, 500 there. But we still have 1,000 people. Now we can just go through and export the filtered 1,080, and we can then go through, I can send that to my email address, and that will go through and send across. Takes a minute or two, but I can actually go through, pull that over. So just open up a Google Drive. I've got this over here. I could just go through, drag and drop this across. So we've got the CSV. There we go, Sales Navigator, and I can now go through and open this into a Google Sheet. It will take a second or two, but then I will have all of those people there. So we got all of this information. It gives us quite a bit, but we can go through, and the emails are within the G column. I'm gonna have to blur it because I don't want to be sharing people's emails. but it is there. It also will go through and give us phone numbers as well, profile links, etc., etc. There's actually quite a few fields in here. You're not going to need every single one, but this is enough to actually get things going. So you can now go through, use all of this. That means with how we go through and scrape LinkedIn, it comes down to your creativity with this method of how we go through and use Sales Navigator. One that I love to go through and do is not actually looking for a keyword, but actually looking of connections of. So we can actually go through, oh, sorry, wrong thing, connections of, and I can go through and find someone that I'm connected with. So I'm actually connected with Jordan Ross, a good friend of mine. Worked with him for quite a few years as well. But I can go through and find filters of people who are connections of Jordan Ross, and I can go through and see absolutely everything. If I wanted to go through and find people in a certain location or under a certain keyword, then we can go through and do it. So I can actually go through and type in agency, and we can find agency owners that are connected to Jordan Ross, in which we've got 1,000 people in this case. So we can then scrape that and then contact those people. It ultimately comes down to methods in which you can go through and bring into Sales Navigator, in which there are so many different things that you can do, so many different keywords that you can look for. You can look for groups, certain locations, position, you name it, companies, it's all there. It all comes down to Sales Navigator, and you would then still do the same method of copy the URL and then taking it across. But what if you do not have Sales Navigator? Well, you can still go through and do this on LinkedIn. Let's say that I was going to go over to LinkedIn and I'm just going to go through and type in agency, spell agency wrong. That's not great. So agency. And then from there, you can go through and put in filters over on here. Now, this isn't as good. You're not going to be able to get as many people. Speaking of which, we do need to go through and set that to people, but we can then go to all filters and you can then set followers of someone that you are then following. So I'm not actually followed by, say, like Dan Martell. So I could go through and get Dan Martell. I can't have him as a first connection because LinkedIn Sales Navigator is only going to allow me to see followers or connections of people that I'm connected with. If it doesn't have those, then I cannot go through and see the people that they are connected with. But in here, I can go through and set followers, in which it will set. There are still some things that we can also go through and do, such as we could go through and put this as founder. And then maybe we also want to go through and say owner. Then we can go through and have those in, show results, and then it will give me a list. This is only going to show us 100 pages. So we actually hit the max here, because that would then be 1,000 people. So I think there's 10 on each and every single one of these. So we can then go through and use this. So this is people who are following Dan Martell, who have got founder or owner within their actual title. And on top of that, they should have agency. So we got agency over in there. This person might have agency within their bio, scale with B2B. So like all of these in some way are either they've got agency somewhere. So we can now go through, copy this, go back over to our Expandi. We've got our lead list. We can add new leads. This time we've got LinkedIn search URL. And this is where it's got the limitation of 1,000 leads. Yet again, that's because LinkedIn is only going to show 100 pages. There isn't 101. So Expandi can't scrape beyond that, but it can take this URL and it will be able to go through and find those 1,000 people so that we don't have to go through each page individually. Same as before, we can go through and do this. So this time I'm going to say DM for Dan Martell, and then we'll say followers. And then we can do the same settings as last time, in which we can do an auto refresh if we want, and then we can go through and hit confirm. It's going to take 5 to 10 minutes again, but it will be able to go through and pull that. And just like what we were able to go through and do before, we can then export this to go through and get their emails, or we can just go through and set this. The downside to this is that I don't think we can go through and set the filter that they've posted within the last, say, 30 days. So what ends up happening is that if you try to go through and do this directly with LinkedIn, that maybe not every single one of them is actually active, but we can still go through and use it, maybe more on the side of using it for cold email. And there we go. We've also now been able to go through and pull directly from LinkedIn itself. 1,000 people. This time we've only got 715 which have email addresses because we still got that filter turned on. But yeah, again, we can go through, export that. That'll be able to go through and send to my email address. And then we can actually go through and bring that across as well. Just to show you, we can then go through, drag and drop this over into the Google Drive. There we go, DM followers, so Dan Martell. Then we could go over, look at Google Sheets, and I'm gonna have to blur it again, but we will still have the exact same layout as what we have. It still formats it the exact same. The only difference is the method in which we've been able to go through and do this. So as long as you are able to go through and have an account to Expandi, you are able to go through and pull whoever it is that you want to be able to go through and pull from there. This could be done directly from LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and of course that depends on how you go through and set it up. You could go through and put links to posts. You can also, if you want to be very, very specific, manually go through and put together a CSV of, or a spreadsheet pretty much, of every single LinkedIn account there you want to see whether or not you can scrape their email address from. And it won't be 100%. It's usually about a quarter, maybe a third, do not have their emails associated with their account. But you can still go through and upload a CSV and then have the LinkedIn account, then scrape from the LinkedIn account, which will then pull it in this order for you to then go through and be able to see the LinkedIn URL, which you would already have, plus also email addresses, phone numbers are also in here as well for those that do have them linked. And there you go. That's exactly how you can scrape from LinkedIn, getting profiles, emails, and also phone numbers. But this by itself doesn't really mean anything unless you're actually going to do something with this information, in which I highly recommend watching this video right here. This video walks through how I sent over 300,000 cold emails, and the majority of them was a complete waste. So make sure that you learn from my mistakes.